The morning sun rose over the Terran Naval Heritage Museum in the Sol Sector. Ambassador Taemin stood at the main entrance, adjusting his formal uniform one last time. Today was important. Very important. The Vrelian Empire was sending their top military officials to inspect Earth's military capabilities. The humans had applied to join the Galactic Security Council 3 years ago. This inspection would decide everything. Tae-Min looked at his watch. The Vrelian ships would land in 10 minutes. He turned to Admiral Jiwoo, who stood beside him with perfect military posture. She was one of Earth's finest officers with 20 years of service in the United Earth Coalition Navy. Are you ready? Taemin asked her. Ji-Woo nodded. The museum is prepared. All exhibits are open. Dong Hyen has prepared detailed presentations for each section. Dong Hyen was the museum's chief curator. He knew every ship, every weapon, and every piece of history in the building. If anyone could impress the Vrelians, it was him. The sky darkened as 3 massive Vrelian ships descended. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Their hulls glowed with purple energy shields. Anti-gravity technology made them float like feathers despite their enormous size. These ships represented everything humanity aspired to achieve. The main ship landed in the designated area. A ramp extended downward with a soft hiss. High Adjudicator Thornax emerged first. He was tall, nearly 8 feet, with 4 arms and skin that shimmered like polished metal. Behind him came 6 other Vrelian officers, each one looking equally impressive in their ceremonial armor. Tae-Min stepped forward and bowed respectfully. High Adjudicator Thornax, welcome to Earth. We are honored by your presence. Thornax looked down at the human ambassador. His face showed no emotion. Ambassador Taemin, let us begin this inspection. We have many worlds to visit this cycle. Admiral Jiwoo gestured toward the museum entrance. Please follow me. Our finest military achievements await your review. The group entered the massive building. The museum was enormous, stretching across 50 acres. The main hall contained humanity's oldest warships, preserved perfectly in climate-controlled environments. Dong Hyen greeted them inside. He was a middle-aged man with gray hair and enthusiastic eyes. Welcome, honored guests. I am Dong Hyen, curator of this facility. I will guide you through 5 centuries of human naval warfare. They stopped at the first exhibit. It was an ancient aircraft carrier from the early 21st century. The massive ship sat in a specially built dry dock, its gray hull still imposing after all these years. This is the USS Gerald Ford, Dong Hyen explained. Commissioned in 2017, it could carry over 75 aircraft. It used nuclear power and could operate for 20 years without refueling. One of the Vrelian officers made a sound that resembled laughter. Nuclear fission? How primitive. We abandoned such dangerous technology 10,000 years ago. Thornax walked around the carrier, examining it with his scanner. And these aircraft? They burned chemical fuel and required atmospheric pressure to function? Yes, Dong Hyen said proudly. They could reach speeds of over 2,000 kilometers per hour. Another Vrelian laughed. Our atmospheric fighters exceed 30,000 kilometers per hour. And they work in space as well. Jiwoo felt her jaw tighten, but she remained professional. This was exactly what she had feared. The Vrelians were not here to learn. They were here to judge. And so far they found humanity lacking. The group moved to the next section. Here stood submarines from various eras. Dong Hyen explained how these vessels operated underwater, launching missiles from beneath the ocean surface. Remarkable, Thornax said, though his tone suggested anything but admiration. You built ships that hid underwater because your detection technology was so limited. We can scan entire planets from orbit. Nothing hides from Vrelian sensors. They continued through the museum. Each exhibit brought more dismissive comments from the Vrelian delegation. The space shuttles that use chemical rockets? Absurdly inefficient, the early plasma rifles. Barely more advanced than throwing rocks. The nuclear missiles? Dangerous to the user and laughably slow. Dong Hyen tried his best to explain the historical significance of each piece. He talked about the ingenuity required to reach space without anti-gravity technology. He explained how humans had to solve problems through clever engineering rather than advanced materials. The Vrelians did not care about any of it. They reached the weapons section. Here, the museum displayed everything from ancient gunpowder rifles to modern railguns. Taemin watched as Thornax picked up a deactivated rifle from the 22nd century. "This fires solid projectiles?" the High Adjudicator asked. "Yes," Dong Hyen confirmed. "Using controlled explosions to propel metal bullets at high velocity." Thornax set the weapon down carefully as if it might contaminate him. "Fascinating. Like cavemen throwing spears but with extra steps." The other Vrelians found this very amusing. Their laughter echoed through the hall. Ji Woo stepped forward. "These weapons served humanity well for centuries. They won wars. They protected our people. They allowed us to reach the stars." "Eventually," Thornax said. "After how long? 500 years to reach your own moon?" "We achieved interstellar travel in less time than that." The tour continued for 3 more hours. The Vrelians examined orbital defense platforms, early fusion reactors, and conventional warships that once protected Earth's solar system. Each exhibit received the same treatment: mockery, dismissal, barely concealed contempt. Finally, they reached the end of the tour. Thornax stood in the main hall, surrounded by humanity's military history. He activated a holographic display and began recording his official assessment. "Let the record show," he announced, "that the humans of Earth have presented their military capabilities for review. After thorough inspection, I find their technology to be approximately 3,000 years behind current galactic standards." Taemin felt his heart sink. He had known this might happen, but hearing it officially was devastating. Thornax continued. "Their weapons rely on primitive kinetic force and chemical reactions. Their ships require massive amounts of fuel for even basic operations. Their detection systems are limited to electromagnetic spectrum analysis. Their defensive capabilities are non-existent against modern plasma or particle beam weapons." Uwu stood perfectly still, but her hands were clenched into fists. "Furthermore," Thornax said, "their greatest achievements are preserved in a museum. This itself is telling. These ships and weapons are so outdated that humans themselves have relegated them to historical curiosity. How can we entrust galactic security to a species that treats their own military as ancient artifacts?" Dong Hyen spoke up. "High Adjudicator, these exhibits represent our journey, our growth, our determination to overcome limitations through intelligence and perseverance." Thornax looked at the curator with what might have been pity. "Your perseverance is noted. Your intelligence is not in question. But the Galactic Security Council requires military power. Real power. Not historical relics and nostalgic displays." The High Adjudicator turned to face Taemin directly. "Ambassador, I hereby recommend that Earth's application to the Galactic Security Council be denied. Perhaps in another 500 years, when you have developed actual military capabilities, you may reapply." Taemin swallowed his pride and bowed. "We understand, High Adjudicator. Thank you for your time and consideration." Thornax and his delegation left the museum without another word. Their ships lifted off silently, disappearing into the afternoon sky. Ji Woo approached Taemin. "Sir, I am sorry. I thought the tour would—" "It is not your fault, Admiral," Taemin interrupted. He looked around at the museum, at all the ships and weapons that once represented humanity's finest achievements. "Perhaps they are right. Perhaps we are not ready." Dong Hyen stood beside them, looking sad. "These machines won wars. They protected millions of people. They deserve respect. They deserve better than to be laughed at." Lu Wu said quietly. The 3 humans stood in silence, surrounded by their history. Above them, the ancient aircraft carrier loomed like a metal cathedral. Around them, submarines and fighters and weapons that had once been cutting-edge technology sat gathering dust. None of them knew that in just 3 weeks, these very same museum pieces would become humanity's greatest weapons. None of them could have guessed that the Vrelians would soon be begging for Earth's help. For now, They only felt the sting of rejection and the weight of inadequacy. 3 weeks after the Vrelian inspection, Captain Hyun-woo sat in his quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel Horizon Dawn. His ship patrolled the outer rim of known space, maintaining communication relays between Earth and the Galactic Council stations. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. He was reading the latest news from Earth when his communication console started beeping frantically. Not the usual pattern. This was an emergency signal. Captain Hyun-woo to bridge. What is happening? His first officer replied immediately. Sir, we are receiving multiple distress calls. Vrelian channels. They are broadcasting on all frequencies. Hyun-woo rushed to the bridge. The main screen showed chaos. Dozens of emergency transmissions were flooding in from Vrelian space. Ships screaming for help. Stations going dark. Entire fleets reporting catastrophic losses. Get me a clear channel, Hyun-woo ordered. Someone who can explain what is happening. After several attempts, they connected with a Vrelian communications officer. The alien's image appeared on screen. His face was covered in what looked like acid burns. Behind him, the command center was filled with smoke and flashing emergency lights. This is Vrelian Command Station 12, the officer gasped. We are under attack. Unknown hostiles. Nothing stops them. Our weapons pass through their ships like they are not even there. What kind of ships? Hyun-woo asked. We do not know. They appeared 2 days ago at the edge of our territory. Biological? Living ships? They ignore our plasma weapons. Our particle beams do nothing. Our shields might as well not exist. They just keep coming. The transmission cut off suddenly. The screen went black. Hyun-woo felt his blood run cold. Communications, send everything we just received to Earth Defense Command. Priority 1. Then connect me with the Galactic Council. It took an hour to reach a council representative. When the connection finally established, Hyun-woo saw that the council chambers were in complete disorder. Dozens of species were arguing, shouting, and panicking. A Galactic Council coordinator appeared on his screen. She was a Talajin, a species known for their calm demeanor. But now she looked terrified. Captain Hyun-woo, we have no time for diplomatic niceties. The situation is critical. An extragalactic force has invaded our space. We are calling them the Netheri Swarm. They are destroying everything in their path. What do they want? Hyun-woo asked. We do not know. They do not communicate. They do not negotiate. They simply attack and consume. Every ship they destroy seems to make them stronger. Back on Earth, Lieutenant Biora sat in Earth Defense Command headquarters, watching the same reports. She was a tactical analyst trained to identify enemy weaknesses and develop counter-strategies. Right now, she was very confused. This does not make sense, she muttered, running the combat footage again. Her supervisor, Commander Kyung-ho, looked over her shoulder. What do you see? Biora pointed at the screen. The Vrelian plasma weapons pass right through the Netheri ships. Same with particle beams and ion cannons. It is like the ships are not solid. Maybe they phase in and out of normal space? No, Biora said, shaking her head. Look here. When the Netheri attack, their weapons definitely make solid contact. They are physical. They can touch things. But energy weapons cannot touch them. Kyung-ho leaned closer. Are you saying they are immune to energy weapons? Not immune. More like transparent to them. The energy passes through without interaction. The Aura ran another analysis. But look at this footage from a Vrelian cruiser. Right before it was destroyed, it tried ramming one of the Netheri ships. The footage showed a desperate Vrelian captain ordering his damaged ship to collide with an enemy vessel. When the two ships made contact, the Netheri ship crumpled. Physical damage? Real damage. They can be hurt by physical impact, Biora said quietly. They have no defense against kinetic force. The realization hit Kyung-ho like a shock. Kinetic weapons. Projectile weapons. Things we stopped using 200 years ago. Or looked up at her commander. Things we kept in museums. President Youngsik received the report within an hour. He sat in his office in Geneva, surrounded by his top military advisors. Admiral Jiwoo was there, along with Ambassador Taemin, who had been recalled for emergency consultation. "Let me understand this correctly," Youngsik said. "The entire Galactic Council, with all their advanced weapons, cannot stop this invasion. But we think our old museum ships might work?" Admiral Jiwoo pulled up tactical displays. "Mr. President, Lieutenant Biora's analysis is sound. The Neferi ships appear to be organic technology. Their cellular structure allows energy to pass through without damage. But physical impact? That still works?" "Bullets work," Taemin said slowly. "Missiles work. Cannons and railguns and torpedoes. Everything the Vrelians laughed at 3 weeks ago." Youngsik looked at each person in the room. "Can we even make those old ships functional again? They have been museum pieces for decades. Some of them are over 200 years old." "We maintain them well," Jiwoo said. "And our modern fusion reactors are compatible with the old weapon systems. We can restore them. The question is, do we want to?" The room fell silent. Everyone understood what she was asking. The Vrelians had humiliated Earth. They had rejected humanity's application to the Security Council. They had mocked human technology and called it primitive. Now those same Vrelians were begging for help. Youngsik stood up and walked to the window. He could see the lights of Geneva spreading out below him. Millions of people going about their lives, unaware that an extragalactic threat was destroying the most powerful empire in known space. "How long until the Neferi reach Earth?" he asked. "At their current speed, 6 months," Admiral Jiwoo replied. "The Vrelian Empire will likely fall in 4 weeks. After that, nothing stands between them and us." Youngsik turned back to face the room. "Then we have no choice. Not because we want to help the Vrelians. Because we have to protect ourselves." He looked at Admiral Jiwoo. "How long to make the museum fleet operational?" 2 weeks if we work around the clock. 3 weeks to be safe." "You have 2 weeks," Youngsik said firmly. "Contact every shipyard, every engineering facility, every weapons manufacturer. I want everything from the Terran Naval Heritage Museum restored to full combat capability." Jiwoo saluted. "Yes, Mr. President." As the meeting ended, Taemin approached Youngsik. "Sir, the Council will see this as weakness. We rejected, now coming to help anyway." Youngsik shook his head. "No, Ambassador. Let them think what they want. We are not doing this for them. We are doing this because it is right. Because when monsters come from the dark, you do not ask who deserves help. You just fight." Within hours, Earth's orbital shipyards received unprecedented orders. Military engineers were pulled from retirement. Weapon systems that had not been fired in a century were brought back online. The museum ships were carefully removed from their display positions and transported to restoration facilities. In the Seoul sector, Dong Hyan watched as massive cranes lifted the ancient aircraft carrier from its dry dock. He had tears in his eyes. These ships were his life's work, his responsibility to preserve. Now they were going to war. A young engineer named Sang-woo approached him. "Mr. Dong Hyan, we will take care of them." "I promise?" Dong Hyan nodded. They were built for battle. Maybe it is time they remembered what that means. Across Earth, the restoration work began. Fusion reactors were installed in ships designed for nuclear fission. Railguns that had fired their last shots 200 years ago were tested and calibrated. Missile bays were loaded with modern warheads mounted on old-style delivery systems. The most surprising discovery came from the small arms section. Conventional firearms, the kind that used gunpowder and bullets, were still completely functional. Someone had maintained them perfectly. Lieutenant Beora visited one of the weapon restoration centers. She watched as technicians loaded magazines into assault rifles from the 21st century. "Will these actually work against the Neferi?" A technician asked her. Beora picked up one of the rifles. It was heavy, mechanical, simple. "According to every analysis we have run, yes. These will work better than any plasma rifle in the galaxy," The technician laughed. The Vrelians are going to lose their minds. The Vrelians are losing their empire, Burra corrected. Maybe losing their minds is exactly what they need. 2 weeks later, Admiral Jiwoo stood on the bridge of a ship that had not moved under its own power in over 100 years. The dreadnought Indomitable was the centerpiece of the museum fleet. 300 meters of armor, weapons, and human engineering from the 23rd century. Now it was her flagship. All systems green, the engineering officer reported. Fusion reactor at full power. Kinetic batteries loaded. Railguns charged. Missile tubes armed. We are ready for combat, Admiral. We looked at the tactical display. 50 ships. 50 museum pieces brought back to life. It was not much compared to the Vrelian fleets that had already fallen. But it was what humanity had. Helm, plot a course for the Kepler Traverse, she ordered. Maximum speed? Course plotted, Admiral. Estimated time to combat zone, 72 hours. Wu settled into the command chair. Around her, the old ship hummed with new life. Take us out. The museum is going to war. Commander Jae-sung walked through the orbital shipyard with a datapad in his hand and worry on his face. He was responsible for coordinating the restoration of 23 different warships across 4 different facilities. The deadline was impossible. The task was absurd. But somehow they were making it work. He stopped at Dock 7, where the old missile cruiser Thunderstrike was being refitted. Chief Engineer Haewon stood beneath the ship's hull, directing a team of technicians as they installed modern targeting computers into weapon systems designed before artificial intelligence existed. How is it going? Jae-sung asked. Haewon did not look up from her work. It is like teaching a grandmother to use quantum computers. The systems are so different, we are basically building translattors between old and new technology. Will it work? Oh, it will work, Haewon said with confidence. These old systems are actually simpler in some ways. No complex programming. No AI oversight. Just good old mechanical engineering. Point at target. Pull trigger. Missile goes boom. Jae-sung smiled despite his stress. The Galactic Council thinks we are crazy. The Galactic Council is getting destroyed, Haewon replied. Maybe crazy is what we need. She gestured to the missile tubes being installed along the cruiser's flanks. Look at these beauties. Each one carries a 500-kilogram warhead. Old-style explosives. When these hit something organic, they're going to do serious damage. Jae-sung checked his datapad. We have 72 hours until the fleet departs. Can you make it? Hey, one wiped grease from her hands. We'll make it. Every shipyard on Earth is working on this. Nobody is sleeping until these ships fly. Across the facility, similar scenes played out. In Dock 3, engineers tested the railguns on a destroyer. That last saw action during the Mars Rebellion of 2187 in Dock 12. Technicians loaded conventional torpedoes into tubes that smelled like oil and history. The most challenging restoration was the carrier designation CV-447. Formerly known as the Hong Kong, it was designed to launch atmospheric fighters, something the modern military had not used in decades. The hangar bays were filled with fighter craft that ran on jet fuel and used rotary cannons. Pilot Minho stood in the hangar. Looking at the fighter he would fly. It was a FA-52 Thunder, a space-capable interceptor from 2210. The cockpit was cramped. The controls were manual. There was no AI assistance, no autopilot, no safety overrides. This is insane, his wingman said, climbing into the fighter next to him. These things are museum displays. Now we are supposed to fight in them? Minho ran his hand along the fighter's nose. My great-grandfather flew one of these during the Jupiter Station conflict. He said they were reliable, simple, hard to break, and easy to fix. Did he mention they are also easy to die in? Minho laughed. He survived 23 combat missions and died at age 97. I think the fighter was fine. Their squadron leader, Major Sumin, walked through the hangar checking each fighter. She was old enough to have actually trained on these aircraft decades ago, before the military transitioned to fully automated drone fighters. "Listen up," she called out to the assembled pilots. "These fighters are different from what you are used to. They do not fly themselves. They do not correct your mistakes. They do not have shields or smart weapons. What they do have is speed, maneuverability, and guns that will actually hurt the enemy." She pulled up a holographic display showing the Netheri bioships. "Intelligence says these things are vulnerable to kinetic weapons. Our cannons fire 4,000 rounds per minute. 30mm armor-piercing explosive rounds. If we can hit them, we can kill them. What about their weapons?" a pilot asked. "They shoot organic projectiles. Like living missiles. Fast but trackable. Your point defense systems can shoot them down if you stay alert." Sumin looked at each pilot. "This is going to be old-style dogfighting. No long-range missiles. No computer assistance. Just you, your fighter, and your training. Any questions?" Nobody spoke. They all understood. This was going to be dangerous. Meanwhile, Navigator Sun He worked in the Fleet Operations Center, plotting intercept courses for 50 different ships using methods that were older than she was. Modern navigation relied on quantum computers calculating hundreds of variables instantly. But the old ships could not interface with modern systems properly. So Sun He did it the old way, manually, with mathematics and physics and careful planning. Her supervisor watched over her shoulder. "Can you really plot accurate courses without AI assistance?" Sun He smiled. "My grandmother was a navigator during the colony expansion. She taught me the old methods. Math does not change. Physics does not change. We just got lazy and let computers do everything." She pulled up a star chart. "The Kepler traverse is here. The Netheri are advancing from this direction. If we intercept them at this point, we force them into close combat where our kinetic weapons work best. That is assuming they fight the way we expect. All the combat data shows they prefer swarming tactics. They surround targets and attack from all directions." Sun He traced the approach vectors. "We use the old Earth naval formation. Line of battle. Overlapping fields of fire. Protect each other's flanks." Her supervisor looked impressed. "You learned all this from your grandmother?" "She learned it from ancient naval history. Humans have been fighting ship-to-ship battles for thousands of years. We just forgot the lessons when we got fancy technology." Sun He saved her calculations. Technology changes. Tactics do not. In Earth's weapons research facility, scientists made an interesting discovery. Dr. Sang-min was examining Netheri tissue samples recovered from a destroyed Vrelian ship. The organic material was fascinating and horrifying at the same time. "Look at this cellular structure," he told his assistant. "It is designed to absorb and dissipate energy. Plasma, lasers, particle beams, all of it gets converted into harmless heat. Evolution created the perfect defense against energy weapons." "But not kinetic weapons?" Dr. Sang-min shook his head. "Kinetic force is different. You cannot dissipate momentum. When something solid hits them, the cellular structure ruptures. Their own biology works against them." He pulled up microscopic imagery. "And look here. Explosive damage creates cascading failure. One ruptured cell damages the next, which damages the next. It spreads through their entire organism." His assistant understood. "So our old explosive missiles will be even more effective than we thought." "Exactly. The Vrelians developed beyond such weapons 3,000 years ago. The Netheri evolved to counter advanced energy weapons. But old-fashioned explosives? They have no defense." Back in the orbital shipyards, the work continued without pause. Engineer teams worked 18-hour shifts. Supply chains that had been dormant for decades suddenly activated. Factories that made conventional ammunition had to restart production. Everything that was once considered obsolete became critically important. Chief Engineer Haewon made another breakthrough. She discovered that by using modern fusion reactors, the old kinetic weapons could achieve much higher velocities than originally designed. A railgun built to fire projectiles at 10,000 meters per second could now fire them at 30,000 meters per second. These museum pieces are going to hit like asteroids, she told Commander Jae-sung. The original designers would be amazed at what we can do with their basic framework and modern power systems. Jae-sung smiled. Maybe that is the point. Good design is timeless. We just added better engines. As the deadline approached, the restored fleet began to assemble in orbit. Admiral Ji-woo watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as ship after ship reported ready for departure. Cruisers, destroyers, frigates, and the carrier Hong Kong. Each one was a piece of history brought back to life. Admiral. We have a communication from Earth Defense Command, her communications officer reported. President Young-sik wants to speak with you. The president appeared on the main screen. Behind him stood Ambassador Taemin and several council members. Admiral Ji-woo, the entire world is watching. We never expected to send museum ships into combat. But here we are. Young-sik looked tired but determined. You have everything we could give you in 2 weeks. Modern reactors, updated sensors, and weapons that the galaxy forgot about. Make them count. We will, Mr. President, Wu-Wu replied. The Vrelians laughed at these ships. Let us see if the Netheri make the same mistake. One more thing, Young-sik added. The Galactic Council has been informed of your mission. They are grateful. They are also doubtful. High Adjudicator Thornax specifically stated that he expects you to fail. Wu felt anger flash through her. Then we will enjoy proving him wrong. The president smiled. I was hoping you would say that. Good luck, Admiral. Bring our history home safely. The communication ended. Ji-woo stood and addressed her crew. All hands, this is the Admiral. In 72 hours, we engage an enemy that has destroyed fleets 100 times our size. They have technology we do not understand. They have numbers we cannot match. But they have never fought humans before. They have never faced weapons they evolved past. We are going to teach them a very old lesson. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Helm, take us out. The Indomitable's engines ignited. Around it, 49 other ships followed. The museum fleet departed Earth orbit. The Heritage fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler Traverse. Admiral Ji-woo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching her tactical displays light up with hostile contacts. There were so many red dots that the screen looked like it was bleeding. Contact count? She asked calmly. Tactical Officer Chang Min checked his sensors 3 times before answering. Over 400 Netheri bioships, Admiral? They are swarming what is left of the Vrelian defense fleet. On the main screen, the battle was visible. Vrelian ships fired desperately, their plasma weapons creating beautiful light shows that accomplished nothing. The Netheri ships flowed through the energy attacks like fish through water. Then they struck back with organic projectiles that tore through Vrelian shields like they were paper. We are receiving a transmission from the Vrelian flagship, the communications officer reported. High Adjudicator Thornax is requesting immediate assistance. Put him on screen, Giwa ordered. Thornax appeared. He looked nothing like the proud, arrogant official who had visited Earth 3 weeks ago. His armor was cracked. One of his forearms hung uselessly. Behind him, his bridge was in chaos. Human fleet, you must retreat, he shouted. These creatures are unstoppable. Your weapons will be as useless as ours. Save yourselves. Ji-woo smiled coldly. High Adjudicator, you once told me our weapons were primitive. Museum pieces. Today, let us see if primitive works better than advanced. She cut the transmission before he could respond. All ships, battle formation Delta. Line of battle, overlapping fields of fire. Changmin, mark the priority targets. Marking now, Admiral. The largest Netheri ships are in the center of their formation. Weapons Officer Yujin, are all kinetic batteries ready? Yujin checked her console. She had been assigned to this mission specifically because she had studied ancient naval tactics. All railguns charged, Admiral. Missile tubes loaded. Conventional torpedoes armed. We are ready to show them how humans used to fight wars. Excellent. Target the center mass of their formation. All ships, prepare to fire on my mark. The Heritage fleet moved into position. 50 ships formed a line, their flanks protected by overlapping defensive fire. It was a formation that would have been familiar to naval commanders from Earth's 20th century. The Vrelians, watching on their sensors, thought the humans had lost their minds. The Netheri noticed the new arrivals. A portion of their swarm broke off from the Vrelian fleet and began moving toward the human ships. They approached quickly, their organic hulls pulsing with disturbing bioluminescence. They are not using evasive maneuvers, Changmin noted. They are coming straight at us. They think we have the same weapons as the Vrelians, Jiwu said. They evolved to counter energy weapons. They have no reason to be cautious. She watched the range counter drop. All ships hold fire until they enter optimal range. On the carrier Hong Kong, Wing Commander Sung Jin prepared his fighter squadrons for launch. He stood in the flight control center, watching his pilots climb into their ancient aircraft. All squadrons, this is Wing Commander Sung Jin. When we launch, maintain formation. Do not get separated. These things hunt in packs. We hunt in packs too. He pulled up the tactical data. Striker Squadron, you are armed with anti-ship missiles. Hit the big ones. Thunder Squadron, you have rotary cannons. Your job is point defense. Shoot down their organic projectiles before they hit our ships. Raptor Squadron, you are free hunters. Find targets of opportunity and kill them. Major Sumin led Raptor Squadron. Understood, Commander. We are ready to show these aliens why humans ruled the skies for centuries. Back on the Indomitable, the Netheri ships entered weapons range. Admiral Jiwu watched the tactical display with the patience of a predator waiting to strike. Range. 200 kilometers, Changmin announced. Hold, Jiwu said calmly. 150 kilometers? They are preparing to fire, Admiral. Hold, the bridge crew was tense. Everyone knew that once the Netheri opened fire, people would die. But Jiwu needed them closer. Much closer. 100 kilometers. They are firing. The Netheri launched their organic projectiles. Hundreds of living missiles accelerated toward the human fleet. They looked like twisted creatures made of meat and malice. Point defense systems, engage. Jiwu ordered. The human ships opened fire with close-range kinetic weapons. Autocannons and small railguns created a wall of metal between the fleet and the incoming projectiles. The organic missiles exploded spectacularly when hit. It turned out that evolution had not prepared them for being struck by solid matter at high velocity. 60% of incoming fire destroyed, Changmin reported. The rest are getting through. Evasive maneuvers. Do not let them hit our engines or command decks. The Heritage fleet, despite being composed of old ships, moved with practiced precision. Navigator Sun He had plotted their formations perfectly. Each ship had room to maneuver without breaking the defensive line. Several organic missiles struck the Indomitable's armor. The old ship shook from the impacts. Damage reports came in from multiple sections. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12, the damage control officer reported. Casualties reported, but our main systems are intact. 50 kilometers, Changmin announced. Optimal range for all kinetic weapons. Admiral Jiwu stood from her command chair. All ships. Fire everything. The Heritage fleet opened fire with weapons the galaxy had forgotten. Railguns accelerated metal projectiles to impossible speeds. Missile tubes launched conventional explosives on chemical rockets. Kinetic batteries fired solid shells using electromagnetic force. It was brutal, primitive, and absolutely devastating. The Netheri bioships, evolved to counter energy weapons, had no defense against solid matter traveling at 30,000 meters per second. Railgun projectiles punched through their organic hulls like they were tissue paper. The explosive warheads designed 200 years ago found weak spots that modern weapons could not exploit. Direct hits across the board. Changmin shouted. Enemy ships are taking severe damage. On the main screen, Netheri bioships were dying. Their organic hulls ruptured and leaked fluids into space. Internal explosions spread through their cellular structures. The creatures that had seemed unstoppable minutes ago were suddenly very vulnerable. Launch fighters. Jiwoo ordered. On the Hong Kong, the flight deck came alive. Catapults powered by magnetic acceleration threw fighters into space. Pilot Minho felt the incredible force as his FA-52 Thunder launched. In 3 seconds, he went from stationary to 300 meters per second. Raptor Squadron, form up on me. Major Sumin ordered. We have multiple targets. Pick one and do not stop shooting until it dies. Minho locked onto a medium-sized Netheri ship that was trying to flank the human fleet. He armed his rotary cannons and dove toward it. The organic ship tried to evade, but it was designed to avoid energy weapons, not physical projectiles. Minho opened fire. His cannons roared, sending 30mm explosive rounds downrange at 4,000 rounds per minute. The effect was catastrophic. The Netheri ship's organic hull began to disintegrate under the sustained kinetic assault. Target destroyed, Minho called out, moving to next target. All around him, other fighters were engaging. Thunder Squadron focused on defensive duties, shooting down organic projectiles before they could hit the capital ships. Striker Squadron launched their anti-ship missiles. The old-style weapons, guided by simple radar instead of sophisticated AI, proved impossible for the Netheri to jam or confuse. Back on the Indomitable, Weapons Officer Yujin coordinated the broadside volleys. She had studied ancient naval warfare extensively. Now she applied those lessons 300 years later in space. Concentrate fire on the large bioship at bearing 270, she ordered. All ships, broadside formation. Fire in sequence to maintain continuous pressure. The Heritage Fleet executed the maneuver perfectly. Each ship fired, then the next, creating a continuous stream of kinetic projectiles. The targeted Netheri ship tried to maneuver away, but there was nowhere to go. It was caught in a killing zone of primitive, brutal, effective weaponry. Target destroyed, Changmin confirmed. Moving to next priority target. High Adjudicator Thornax watched from his crippled flagship in disbelief. His sensors showed the impossible. The human fleet, using weapons his ancestors had abandoned thousands of years ago, was destroying an enemy that had defeated the most advanced military in the galaxy. How? He whispered. How are they doing this? His tactical officer understood. Admiral, their weapons are kinetic. Solid projectiles. The Netheri have no defense against physical impacts. They evolved to counter our plasma and particle beam technology. Thornax felt something he had not experienced in decades. Humility, the humans, with their primitive museum pieces, had found the solution that eluded all the advanced species. The battle raged for 3 hours. The Netheri, despite their numbers, began to retreat. They had never encountered an enemy that could actually hurt them. Their biological programming did not know how to handle it. Admiral Jiwoo saw the retreat beginning. Do not let them escape. Pursue and destroy. We cannot allow them to adapt to our tactics. The Heritage Fleet pressed forward. Fighter squadrons harried the fleeing Netheri ships. 2 weeks after the Battle of Kepler Traverse, the Heritage Fleet returned to Earth orbit. The ships were battered and scarred, but they flew in formation with pride. Admiral Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as they approached home. Every ship in Earth's defensive fleet fired their engines in salute. It was a tradition that dated back centuries. Admiral, we are receiving communications from Earth, her communications officer said. Everyone wants to talk to us. The President, the Defense Council, the news networks, everyone? Uu smiled. Tell them we will speak with them once we have docked and our wounded are taken care of. Duty first, celebration later. As the ships settled into their docking positions, medical transports rushed to meet them. The casualties from the battle received immediate care. Captain Han Wu, who had monitored the entire battle from his diplomatic vessel, helped coordinate the medical response. Get the critical cases to the hospital first, he ordered. Then the serious injuries. Walking wounded can wait. Among the injured was pilot Minho, whose fighter had been hit during the final assault. He had managed to land on the Hong Kong despite losing half his controls. Now he sat in the medical bay while doctors treated a broken arm and several cracked ribs. You are lucky, the doctor told him. If that organic projectile had hit your cockpit instead of your wing, you would not be here. Minho laughed, then winced from the pain. My great-grandfather always said luck is what keeps pilots alive. Skill just makes them good. 3 days later, Ambassador Temin sat in the Galactic Council chambers on the space station. Unity 7, the massive circular room was filled with representatives from 200 different species. Every seat was occupied. Everyone wanted to hear what he had to say. High Adjudicator Thornax stood at the central podium. He looked healthier than during the battle, but the experience had clearly changed him. Members of the Galactic Council, Thornax began. 3 weeks ago, I inspected Earth's military capabilities. I found them lacking. I found their technology primitive. I recommended denying their application to the Security Council. He paused and looked directly at Taemin. I was wrong. Catastrophically wrong. When the Netheri invaded, every advanced species in this council was helpless. Our plasma weapons, our particle beams, our sophisticated energy shields, all useless. The humans, with their primitive kinetic weapons, saved us. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several species looked uncomfortable. The idea that primitive technology could be superior was difficult for them to accept, Thornax continued. The humans use weapons we abandoned thousands of years ago. Solid projectiles, chemical explosives, simple mechanical systems. We thought evolution meant leaving such things behind. We were fools. Evolution is not about abandoning what works. It is about using the right tool for the right task. He gestured to Taemin. I formally request that Ambassador Taemin address this council. Taemin stood and walked to the podium. He had prepared a speech, but looking at the assembled aliens, he decided to speak from the heart instead. Members of the council, you are all more advanced than humanity. You have faster ships, better sensors, more sophisticated technology. But you forgot something important. You forgot that sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. He pulled up footage from the Battle of Kepler Traverse. The council watched as human ships destroyed Netheri vessels with weapons that belonged in museums. We did not keep these weapons because we are primitive, Taemin said. We kept them because we understand that technology is a tool, not a religion. Energy weapons are amazing, but they are not perfect for every situation. Kinetic weapons are simple, but they work always. A council member from the Fashion Collective spoke up. Ambassador, are you saying that our technological advancement is a weakness? No, Taemin replied. I'm saying that abandoning old knowledge in pursuit of new knowledge is foolish. Humans have a saying, do not throw away the ladder after you have climbed it. You might need to go back down. The council chamber fell silent. Then, slowly, species after species began signaling their agreement. The Galactic Council coordinator stepped forward. Ambassador Taemin, on behalf of the Council, I wish to address Earth's application to the Security Council. This was it. The moment that would determine humanity's place in the galaxy. After witnessing your military effectiveness, your tactical innovation, and your willingness to assist despite previous rejection, this Council votes unanimously to grant Earth full membership on the Galactic Security Council. Effective immediately. The chamber erupted in approval. Taemin felt relief wash over him. They had done it. Through battle and blood, humanity had earned its place. Back on Earth. President Young-Sik addressed a crowd of millions gathered in Seoul. Behind him, the Terran Naval Heritage Museum stood with its doors open. Inside, empty spaces marked where the ships had once been displayed. The ships that hung in this museum as historical artifacts became our salvation, Young-Sik said. They remind us that progress is not about forgetting the past. It is about building on it. The Indomitable, the Hong Kong, the Thunderstrike, all of them fought and bled for us. Many good people died in those old ships. We honor them today. In the crowd, Curator Dong Haiyan stood with tears streaming down his face. The ships he had cared for had fulfilled their purpose. They had gone to war and come back victorious. Admiral Ji Woo stood beside him. Your ships performed perfectly, she told him. Every system, every weapon, they all worked exactly as they were supposed to. Dong Haiyan wiped his eyes. Will they come back to the museum? Ji Woo shook her head. Some will. The ones too damaged to repair. But most will join the active fleet. We are building more like them. The old designs with modern improvements. The museum will feel empty. Then fill it with new history, Ji Woo said. The story of how museum pieces saved the galaxy. That is worth preserving. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council held a special ceremony. High Adjudicator Thornax personally presented Admiral Ji Woo with the Council's highest military honor. It was the first time a human had received it. Admiral, on behalf of the Vrelian Empire and all free species, thank you, Thornax said. You taught us that wisdom is not about having the most advanced technology. It is about knowing when to use the right tool. Ji Woo accepted the award gracefully. High Adjudicator, there is an old Earth saying, when all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. You had plasma hammers. We brought kinetic nails. Together we built victory. The ceremony ended with a request that surprised everyone. The Vrelian Empire asked Earth to design weapons for their fleet. Not energy weapons. Kinetic weapons. Ships began arriving at Earth's shipyards for retrofitting. Commander Jae-sung found himself in the strange position of teaching alien engineers how to build cannons and missiles. The Vrelians were brilliant scientists, but they had forgotten the practical engineering of projectile weapons. It is like teaching advanced mathematics to someone who forgot basic arithmetic, Jae-sung told Chief Engineer Haewon. She laughed. Maybe that is exactly what they need. Back to basics. Sometimes you have to unlearn complexity to understand simplicity. On the space station Unity 7, Captain Haiyan Woo helped establish the new Human Military Advisory Office. Species from across the galaxy came seeking knowledge about kinetic warfare. They wanted to learn human tactics, human weapons design, human strategic thinking. Lieutenant Ba-ora, promoted to major for her tactical analysis, taught classes on identifying enemy weaknesses. The Netheri were vulnerable to kinetic weapons because they evolved in an environment where energy weapons were common. She explained to a class of alien officers, always look for what your enemy expects. Then do something different. Back on Earth, the Terran Naval Heritage Museum reopened with a new wing. The fleet that saved the galaxy featured the ships that had fought at Kepler Traverse. The Indomitable held the place of honor. Its battle-scarred hull preserved exactly as it returned from combat. Dong Haiyan gave tours to visitors from Earth and beyond. Children pressed their faces against the glass to see the kinetic batteries. Alien visitors studied the simple elegance of human weapon design. The museum became the most visited site in the solar system. One day, a young cadet named Ji-hai stood before the Indomitable with her class. She was 17, preparing to enter the military academy. Her instructor was explaining the battle's tactics. The Vrelians had superior technology, the instructor said, but Admiral Ji Woo had superior strategy. She understood that the best weapon is the one that works, not the one that looks impressive. Raised her hand. Sir, why did the Galactic Council abandon kinetic weapons if they work so well? The instructor smiled. Because progress can make you arrogant. When you develop something new and powerful, you think everything old is worthless. The Council species forgot that every tool has its purpose. Humans remembered. That is why we are here today. He gestured to the massive warship. This ship is 300 years old. Its design is even older. But it saved the galaxy because someone understood that old does not mean useless. I looked at the Indomitable with new respect. The hull still bore scorch marks from organic projectiles. The armor plating showed where rail gunshots had ricocheted off during the battle.